welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. Excuse me, folks. Hope you're off to a great start for the day. And obviously, the top story in America today, right now, is the presidential campaign and what Donald Trump is going to do and how he's going to navigate the rest of this campaign. So let me just say right off the bat, so that everybody understands exactly where I'm coming from on this. Because the big controversy now is, well, Nikki Haley should drop out. DeSantis is out. Everybody's out now. I'm out. Everybody's out now. Except Nikki Haley, that she should drop out. And Ronna McDaniel, chairman of the Republican National Committee, is urging her to drop out. And apparently so is everybody else. So let me just tell you where I come down on this. Well, you know that Nikki Haley, as far as I'm concerned, is a complete zero politically, that she should not be vice president, she should not be president, she should not serve anywhere near the seat of top power in this country. She's already served as governor of South Carolina. I'll leave it to South Carolinians to determine what they think of that, but apparently Trump is just trouncing her in the polls in South Carolina, that she's going to get an embarrassing loss in her home state when that election comes up, which is in about a month. This is my position on the issue. I don't care whether she drops out or not. I think she's irrelevant. I think she's irrelevant. I think the primary is already over. And I don't think she's delusional. I think she's got people who are willing to give her money and probably made promises to her about her future. And she is placating those people and pandering to those people, even though she knows she has absolutely no chance whatsoever of winning the nomination. Zip. Zero. Nada. So she's irrelevant. And here's why I'm not particularly incensed over her staying in and, you know, sort of on the bandwagon. She needs to drop out. Everybody needs to unify. Because, folks, the people who support Nikki Haley are not going to unify behind Donald Trump. They're not. If Nikki Haley drops out, those people are not going to say, well, since Nikki Haley has finally dropped out, yeah, I'm going to fall in behind Trump. No. They already know that Nikki Haley has no chance. Why are they still supporting her? Because they don't like Trump. And they're not going to like Trump if she drops out. In fact, they'll probably like him less. So as far as I'm concerned, she's irrelevant. You know, the mainstream media could do to her what they did to me, which is just ignore her. Because at this point, she's a non-factor. They ignored me because they didn't want a Christian voice being heard, but that's another matter. They could just ignore her because she is a non-factor. She doesn't matter. Okay? Who ultimately becomes a Democratic nominee might matter. What kind of voting system is used to count these votes in the 2024 election will matter. But Nikki Haley doesn't matter. She doesn't matter one bit. Okay? So I don't care whether she stays in or gets out. I mean, to me, it's irrelevant. Trump is the Republican nominee for all practical purposes, barring some tragic turn of events, which I don't want and certainly am not in any way predicting or prophesying. I'm saying, but barring that, he will be the nominee. And I fully expect that he will be the Republican nominee. And right now, based upon the polling and based upon the state of the economy and the border and the issues that we're confronting as a nation, our national security posture, I predict that he will become president of the United States again, unless some savior rides in on a pseudo-savior rides in for the Democrat Party on a white horse that gives people some kind of fresh perspective and some kind of sense, oh, okay, this person represents the future, maybe. But even that is a long shot. That's the only hope they have. I don't think Biden beats Trump in a heads-up election coming up, because I think Biden's intellectual and mental deficits are going to loom larger and larger as we get closer and closer. He simply does not have the stamina. He does not have the ability to run a nationwide campaign. I think he is clearly in mental decline, clearly, and I think that's going to become more and more plain. I think it's going to It's going to demoralize his base and the people who normally would be voting for him enthusiastically. Of course, some of them will still vote for him because they hate Trump enthusiastically, but it will demoralize his base. It will give people a sense that, you know what, he's just not up to the job. They will not be excited about coming out and voting for him. And I predict that Donald Trump will become the next president of the United States once again. Again, barring some unforeseen tragic occurrence. And that is not a 100% prediction, but I would say it's probably about 95, 96, 97%, because I think that's where it is. And we can have some hope and some solace that not only will Donald Trump reverse all of these destructive Biden policies, but that he will capture the spiritual and moral vision to help assure the country's change of direction after he is no longer president. He didn't do that before because, as you all know, as soon as he's out of office, Biden comes in and undoes everything Trump did. I mean, pretty much undid everything. That's because there's a mindset among these people that must be destroyed. And Donald Trump, if he becomes the next president, assuming he does become the next president, has got to make it part of his mission to destroy that mindset. That's why when I ran, I said, the next president has to understand that you have to be a cultural force, not simply a political force, but a cultural force to challenge the American people on the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, the moral direction the country is being dragged in by the Democrat Party and their leftist allies. Because we're being dragged into Marxism and socialism. We're being dragged into communism, really. We're certainly being dragged into amoral, atheistic, secularistic philosophy and attitudes about all of life. That's where they're trying to take us. And even if a president reverses policies that are and creates policies that are better for the economy and better for the border, and what? I mean, just those are the two main issues, really. Oh, better for crime. If nothing happens to change the mindset of these leftists and their control over these cultural institutions of influence, it's going to be just like a rubber band. I mean, Trump will stretch it back and pull it back and pull it back and pull it back. And then when he's out of office, bing, it'll snap right back to where it was and keep going in the same direction that they had it going in, which is what happened after his first term in office. Now, that's not a criticism of him per se. I mean, it's just a statement of the reality of what we're facing. That's why we can hope that he will understand that and will really begin to speak to the American people in a way that helps them understand that this is more than an economic and a national security and a border crisis, that this really is a moral and spiritual crisis. This is an identity crisis over who we are. And so that's the challenge. But the primary, for all practical purposes, is over. Okay? That's just over. So just wanted to get that out there. I am 1,000% behind Donald Trump. Not because I think that Donald Trump is perfect by any stretch of the imagination, not because there aren't some things about him that I wish he would change, but because I really believe that Donald Trump is the triage doctor that the emergency room patient needs right now, and the emergency room patient being the United States of America. Donald Trump is the triage doctor. He is the ER physician that is needed right now to pull us back from the brink of death. And we hope position the patient for long-term treatment and full recovery. And that's the analogy the Lord gave me. I'm sticking with it. Okay, I want to get that on the table for everybody. The second thing I want to talk about is the border, because, as you all know, there's negotiations going on. There are negotiations going on right now in the Senate for a border bill. And I am urging everyone to oppose this thing, to tell your senator that you oppose it, to let people know that you oppose it. This is not a bill to end the border crisis. This thing is an abomination to enshrine into law the horrible circumstances that we have right now. So for example, this bill will actually allow the processing of 5,000 illegal immigrants who show up at the border per day. Now, we're not talking about telling people go through the normal channels that are already established. No, we're talking about enshrining in law that 5,000 people who show up every day at the border, those people can be let in. In other words, we are now going to make illegal immigration legal. That's the only way you can put it. We're going to make illegal immigration legal to the tune of 5,000 people a day. And by the way, 5,000 people a day before measures can be invoked to stop the flow, like the Title 42 authority that Biden refused to exercise. But we're going to accept 1.8 million illegal immigrants in a year under this new bill that's being proposed. In other words, almost 2 million. I don't know how many we've let in under Biden because I keep seeing different numbers, but I guarantee you it's somewhere in the vicinity of 5 to 10 million people. It's somewhere in that vicinity between the gotaways that nobody even knows about and the people who just presented themselves at the border seeking asylum, which we know over 90% of those people are not entitled to asylum, but we're now processing them in. I think it's 5 to 10 million people in just the 3 years of the Biden administration. We're going to take care of 250,000 people whose parents came here illegally, the dreamers, if you will, and maybe came here legally or illegally and then stayed. So we're going to have 250,000 more people. I don't know whether that's per year or in toto, but I have a feeling that's probably per year. They're going to keep the parole programs in place so that illegal immigrants can enter the country through American airports with this little app that they're going to be given, parole. That's going to be enshrined into law. Biden has been doing that by regulation. That's going to now be enshrined into law. We're going to quicken the work permit process for illegal immigrants so that once they get into the country illegally, and that includes the people who are here now, they can get work permits and go to work. And they're going to expand the benefits so that there's going to be more money for telephones and apartments and food and clothing and this, that, and the other. And more money for these NGOs that are processing people across the border. You know, there was one NGO that is a group of activists, anti-border security activists. I mean, they are actively trying to create open borders. They got $125 million in taxpayer money to process people across the border. And they're open borders activists. I mean, we're in a mess. We are in a mess, folks. So this Senate bill should be a non-starter, period. That is not a solution to the border. That is not what, that's not even what they call comprehensive immigration reform, and even the proposals that come up with that are an abomination. Look, let me reiterate what I said when I was running for president. Here's how you secure the border, okay? And my position is even more conservative than Donald Trump's. Number one, zero tolerance for illegal immigrants, for illegal immigration, which means that it doesn't matter what your age, it doesn't matter what your status, doesn't matter male, female, doesn't matter whether you're a family, doesn't matter who you are. Our position is if you come into our country illegally, we will hunt you down and deport you, period. No exceptions. Zero tolerance. Say, well, man, that seems awfully harsh, but folks, that's the only way we're going to stop this flow. Until the word goes out even if you manage to get across the border, they're not going to let you stay. You will never have a peaceful night of sleep because you're always going to be concerned that somebody's going to knock on the door and identify you as an illegal immigrant and kick you out. You will not have any stability there. So what's the point? You heard Kamala Harris just recently said that the answer, we have to give amnesty to the people who are here. We have to give them a pathway to citizenship. Well, we know that's what the game is. That's what the game is. The game is to get these people into the country, give them citizenship, and over a period of time, use them to create one-party rule in America because they will be beholden to the Democrat Party, and they want the Democrats basically be able to say, look, you owe us everything. Now vote. Just like they say to black folks now, you know. I mean, you owe us everything. You better vote for us. Because those racists are out to get you. The racists were trying to keep you out of the country, and we got you in. That's the message. And they think it's a winning formula. That's why Biden is down there having border agents cut the barbed wire that they're putting up along the border. That's why he's down there having them cut that barbed wire out. That's why he's suing in federal court to stop Texas from enforcing the border. Because they want the borders open. They, excuse me, they want these people in. They want them in. This is not, well, you know, there are a lot of people trying to get in and we want to show them compassion. No, no, no. They are trying to funnel people into the country. It's intentional, folks. I mean, come on. That's not some radical right-wing statement. It's obvious to all. Anybody who's honest and wants to look knows, of course, that that's what's going on. Biden hasn't done not one single thing to indicate or to communicate to people who live south of our border or coming in trying to enter the southern. I mean, we got people from 100 countries coming in. But he has not done a single thing to say, do not come because we will not let you in. And if you get in, we are going to hunt you down and deport you. Not, all the messaging has been, just which Kamala Harris recently, we need a pathway to citizenship, which says to all the people who aspire to try to get here, see, I told you. These Americans talk a good game. Oh, yeah, we're against illegal immigration. But once you get into the country, you're going to become a citizen. It's just a matter of time. And even if you don't, the children you have while you're there, they're all going to be American citizens, and they get to anchor, those children then anchor you into the country, and it becomes impossible for them to get you out. So, number one, zero tolerance for abortion. Number two, a constitutional amendment that makes clear being born in America does not make you an American citizen. You are only an American citizen if you are born to at least one biological parent who is an American citizen, period. If you got two parents, neither of whom are American citizens, I don't care if you're born in the heart of the country. What's the central of I think isn't Kansas City, Kansas, isn't that the sort of the dead center of the country? Well, wherever you are born, you're born within the territorial confines of the United States of America. You are not a citizen unless at least one biological parent is an American citizen. If they are not, then you are born an alien and subject to deportation. Period. No more anchor babies. No more China sending people over here to be, women over here to have their babies in America so they become American citizens. They go back in China be trained as double agents and spies and then sent back to our country, and you don't have the ability to just keep them out or do anything with them because they're American citizens. None of that. That's over. So that is number two. And then, of course, number three, which I usually mention first, which is finish the wall. Finish the wall and then equip it with all the technology necessary to monitor those difficult spaces and places where it's it's very hard to put a wall there because it's so wild and the terrain is so rough. But we use technology to monitor what's going on there, and we have the full staffing of border agents, border patrol agents that are ready to respond at a moment's notice when people are trying to come in illegally. So, you know, they start confronting these border agents, and then you have to have a policy of immediate repatriation, immediate return. We catch you, you've crossed our border, you're illegal. Those border agents have the right to summary deport you. Summary deportation. We're taking you right back across the border, right back to your country. You start doing those things, and guess what? People will start to self-deport, and they'll stop trying to come because they'll know how difficult it is. And by the way, this would be devastating for the cartels. And that's another thing I've added since then. I would declare the cartels terrorist organizations and start dealing with them accordingly, because they are terrorist organizations. They are some of the most evil organizations on the face of the planet right now, and they've got to be dealt with in no uncertain terms. They control Mexico, and they control the border. And we should not have these criminal organizations controlling the border and entry into the United States of America. I said, you know, they ought to cut checks with Joe Biden, because he's made them, you thought cocaine was making them wealthy. Human trafficking has made them far wealthier than they ever were. I mean, you can't even imagine at this point how much money these cartels have. I mean, they're charging $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for people to come across. And then when they get here, if they haven't paid them all that money, they become their slaves until they're paid off. Women become prostitutes, and men work in their drug facilities and just basically committing crimes and doing things for them, trying to get out from underneath the cartel, which never really happens. I mean, this stuff is horrible, and we don't need to be compromising with it. We need to stamp it out. That's what I mean when I say Donald Trump is the triage doctor that the emergency room patient needs right now, because that's where we are. We're in an emergency. We are bleeding. We are bleeding out. We are hemorrhaging, and without some quick emergency treatment, the patient's going to die. And that physical therapist, that surgeon, that family physician, if you will, that person who's going to nurse you back to health, that's a different leader. I wish we could find the right person with both those qualities. I believe that Donald Trump certainly has the latter quality, and I'm hoping that he will demonstrate in his 4 years the former quality, understand that I'm going to save the patient, but the patient needs long-term care, and let me address that issue as well. Long-term care, we got to come back to faith in God. We got to come back to family. We got to get rid of all this racial demagoguery that the left and the Democrat Party are spewing right now. You know, you got Fannie Willis down here in Georgia talking about anybody coming against her, they're coming against her because she's black. I mean, give me a break. The last refuge of the scoundrel. I'm a victim of racism. Barack Obama he sang that same sad song for 8 years as the most powerful man on earth. Hey, come on, it's preposterous. And we got to get rid of it. And of course, all of that racial rhetoric helps with the border issue, helps the Democrats with the border issue, because they're constantly saying the reason why people are opposed to the illegal immigrants is because they're racist, they're anti-Hispanic. I mean, all that stuff needs to be completely debunked. And the American people need to see, we as Americans, regardless of the complexion of our skin, We are in compact and covenant with one another as one family, one nation, and we have a right to determine who enters our nation and how. We have a right to determine who may be let in and why. The world doesn't get to dictate that for us. We get to dictate that for the world. And it has nothing to do with skin color. It has everything to do with our national security and sovereignty. So, right now, there's only one person who's going to address these issues, these triage issues, this emergency room situation we find ourselves in. And that's Dr. Trump. So, let's just get that settled in our minds right now and just move on, okay? And like I said, because Nikki Haley at this point is irrelevant. I've been talking to you about the anti-Christian bigotry. I want to tell you that we got a couple of new initiatives that we're going to do at STAND, Staying True to America's National Destiny. One is the Family Restoration Institute, which we're going to use to address this issue, among others, which is America's Forgotten Children, all these children being murdered in the streets of our cities. We're up to close to 600 since the George Floyd incident, with these children being murdered by the hundreds. And it's not the police murdering them, it's not the KKK murdering them, it's not white racist skinheads murdering them. They're being murdered by kids in their own community, in their own neighborhoods. And sadly murdered sometimes by their mother's boyfriends and in circumstances of domestic violence because of the breakdown of the family. The Family Restoration Institute is going to respond to that, and we're working on that right now. So you'll be learning more about that in 2024. Where was I? What was I? So it's the second initiative. I started out talking about anti-Christian bigotry and hatred. We're starting a new project called REACH, the Revolt to End Anti-Christian Hatred. REACH, the Revolt to End Anti-Christian Hatred. I saw a story today. Hawaii has barred Christian clubs, including the Child Evangelism Fellowship Club, which I've worked with myself, has barred them from all Hawaii public schools. Now, all kinds of things can be on campus, but Christian Evangelism Fellowship cannot be. Why is that? It's because of anti-Christian hatred and bigotry. That's why that is. I guarantee if somebody wanted to do, my goodness, we got Satan clubs spraying up across the country. And I guarantee if somebody wanted to do an Islamic club, a Buddhist club, a Hindu club, they would be welcomed with open arms. But no. Christianity, no, that's dangerous. Christianity is dangerous because it's oppressive. It's oppressive because it's a white conspiracy to oppress people of color or BIPOCs, black, indigenous people of color. This is the Marxist lie that too many in our country have bought into. And so you've got this discrimination against the Christian group, and you don't find that among other groups. They say pretty much every other group that wants to be on campus is allowed, but Child Evangelism Fellowship is not allowed. It's anti-Christian hatred and bigotry. It's been growing in our country for a long time, sort of under the covers, under the underground, undercurrent, and it's still not spoken of explicitly now. But oh my goodness, this has been happening for a long time, and I think many of us Christians have just not wanted to acknowledge it. We just haven't wanted to believe that in our own country people would hate others because of their Christian faith. Since we are a Judeo-Christian country, we are steeped in Christian thought and culture, and you would think, well, that's not happening in America, but it is happening in America. And this is just another indication of it. And so my good friend Matt Staver at Liberty Counsel is representing Child Evangelism Fellowship in Hawaii and suing the Department of Education in Hawaii. And I really believe that they will ultimately prevail. It might have to be before the Supreme Court, because I don't trust the courts in Hawaii. Hawaii is another one of those. I've mentioned Illinois, Massachusetts, Maryland, Maine, but I hadn't mentioned Hawaii. But Hawaii is another one of those. California, obviously. Hawaii is another one of those one-party states. Democrats are in complete control of Hawaii. There is no Republican Party to speak of. It's one-party rule. That's what the Democrats want for America. One-party rule. Because they're good communists. They're good totalitarianists. And of course, the main principle of the communists, the fascists, the totalitarianists is we must completely obliterate all opposition. We must silence them. We must destroy them. And that's what they set out to do. And that's what the Democrats are setting out to do to our country. They want to destroy the Republican Party because it's the party of conservative thought. And they want to rule over America the way they now rule over Hawaii and Massachusetts and Maine and California and Illinois and so on. And our job is to stop them. In fact, if any party needs to be relegated to a minority party forever, it is the Democrats, because they have become the party of Antichrist. Everything God is for, they're against. Everything God is against, they're for. They are the godless party of America today. And by the way, I have not given up the idea. I'm still thinking about it and praying about it and contemplating it. But I have not given up on the idea of a Christian party in the United States of America. Because I just think that the Republican Party is simply not going to represent a Christian and biblical worldview. And that you might say, well, but a national Christian party can't win elections. It can't. No, perhaps not. We don't know what the future might hold with something like that. But one thing is for sure, it might put Christians in a better position to negotiate with the other party that's open to Christianity, and say, if you want our support, here's what we want. Because, and folks, I know this is going to be a little bit harsh, but it needs to be said. Most of you probably heard me say this before. The Republican Party treats Christians the way the Democrat Party treats black folks, which is, we know we need your vote, and we will always do enough to convince you that you don't have any alternative. But in the end, what we really need you to do is sit down, shut up, and just be good sycophants. That's the way the Democrat Party treats black folks. They know that the majority of the voters for Democrats are Christians. They know that's where the base of their vote is. That's why they will go out of their way to try to reach these churches. They know that's where the vote is. Most of these Christians are opposed to killing unborn babies, but the Democrat Party says, but sit down, shut up, and just be good sycophants, okay? After all, we're your saviors. Don't sweat the details. They know these Christians don't agree that a man can become a woman or a woman become a man, and all this gender confusion and nonsense that they're trying to sell. But when it comes to black Christians, what they say to them is, just shut up. We're your saviors. We know what's best. Don't sweat the details. Leave that to us. You just be good sycophants and get out there and vote for us. We could care less about your God. We could care less about your Bible. We could care less about your church. But after all, we're your racial saviors, so just get out there and vote for us, okay? And don't bother us with anything else. Well, frankly, in my view, that's the way the Republican establishment thinks about Christians. Yeah. We know you've got these spiritual ideas about killing unborn babies, and you got these ideas, but we can't go but so far with that stuff because it's a loser. So just shut up. We're your spiritual saviors. We're the only game in town for you. So just shut up Don't sweat the details. Leave that to us and just be good sycophants. I mean, that's clearly Ronna McDaniel's message. Because come June, I have no doubt she'll be sending out communiques about how we ought to celebrate this so-called gay pride. Pride, you know, they've dropped the word gay, which I don't use, but they've dropped the word that means homosexual because now they got so many different sexually perverse categories that it doesn't all get captured in speaking of homosexual. Because you got the non-binary and you got the gender fluid and you got the this and the that and the, I mean, who knows? So now it's just Pride Month. Pride in sin. And the Republican Party that depends upon evangelicals to put it over has got the nerve to send out a communication telling us that we ought to celebrate with them. Same thing. Okay, yeah. We know your dumb Bible teaches that homosexuality is sin, but don't bother us with that stupid mess because we're trying to win office and we're trying to win Republican seats, and just shut up and be good sycophants, okay? And don't sweat the details. Leave that to us. Leave that to the parents. We know what's best. It's disgusting. And that's why I think ultimately, and here again, I haven't decided to do this or be a part of anything like this, but it does bring to mind that ultimately Christians may need our own political party where we don't have to compromise with people in order to be heard, where we can be heard on our own and say, this is what we want, this is what we believe, this is what we're going to do, and if you want our support, this is what we expect. See, I'm convinced if we were able to communicate clearly and unequivocally to the American people, that most Americans would side with us, but we're not allowed to do that because we're filtered through the lying leftist media, which caricatures us as Christians. And then we're right-wing crazies, we're Christian nationalists, we're, you know, I mean, you name it. We're fascists. They caricature us in a negative light so that the American people will not, they will see Bible-believing Christianity as marginal, as fringe. When the fact of the matter is, we're in the mainstream of normal human thought. They're the ones who've gone all out on the deep, crazy end. In fact, they've jumped headlong into the depth of the abyss. And because we won't go with them, oh, see those people who don't want to go to hell with us? See, those are bad people. We're all going to hell. Why can't everybody go? Why is anybody raising an objection? Oh, those bad people like E.W. Jackson and Andrew Womack and well, you know, I could go down the list. Organizations and people. Tim Wildman and American Family Radio. They're the crazies out there raising all these spiritual issues. Those are losers. The American people don't want to hear that. Well, that's because they don't really have any champions saying what needs to be said without apology or equivocation. And all these needle threaders, see where it's gotten them? Folks, I dare say I did as well as any second-tier candidate, including Asa Hutchinson and who's the guy out in North Dakota? I forget his name, but I did as well as any of those candidates. And among all those candidates, they probably spent in the primary $500 million. And most of them you never even heard of because they had no message. They had nothing to say. They had enough money to do ads and reach people. Unlike me, I had to rely on my network of supporters and churches and ministers and all of that. They had money. And where did it get them? Nowhere. Because they had no message the American people were particularly interested in hearing. I tell you, when I was on the campaign trail out in Iowa, I heard every single one of them, and I just thought to myself, It's a big fat nothing burger. And every time I had a chance to speak, the people gravitated toward me because I had a message. And it was clear and it was unequivocal. I had one guy come up to me in Iowa and say, man, he said, I've been asking myself, is it going to be any candidate who arises who actually tells the truth about where we are? He said, you've got my support because you're the first candidate I've heard actually tell the truth. The rest of them are bobbing and weaving and dancing and trying to figure out what they think they need to say in order to be accepted. Well, that's because I don't speak for myself. I speak for God. I speak for His Word. And I'm not going to play games and mealy mouth and compromise and dilute the truth of God's Word in order to make people happy. But you see, I think that's what the American people really want. But all the powers that be, for the most part, precisely don't want the American people to hear that because they know if they do, they will gravitate to it. And they don't want them gravitating to it because that's in the way of their power. And that could threaten their power. Well, we are going to continue to pray for our country. I want to remind you as I prepare to go, just 2 days from now, I will be with Andrew Wommack. And Andrew Wommack, let me just say this, folks. Andrew Wommack is really somebody that he's not only a friend, but I deeply admire him because Andrew Wommack has got a worldwide ministry. He reaches up to 5 billion people around the world, but he has not failed. He has never shrunk from denouncing this killing unborn babies in the womb. He's never shrunk from talking about what marriage is as God ordained it. He doesn't speak, again, just like me, he doesn't speak with hatred or venom or anger or bitterness, but with love, speaking the truth in love, makes clear and unequivocally what the Word of God says. And you got a lot of ministers with big ministries who won't do that. They simply won't do it. They're afraid. They're cowards. I might offend some people in my church. I might lose some tithes. I might lose some viewership. Andrew Wommack said the first time God impressed upon him the importance of addressing these things, he said that he actually did lose some support. And it took I think, forgive me if I'm not getting the details right, but it took some time, I think it was several months, for things to finally take an upturn again. He said, but you know what? He said, I never wavered because I knew I was saying what the Lord wanted me to say. So I can't be controlled by, oh, well, wait a minute. Oh, we lost some viewers, or oh, I got to change my I can't say that. No, because that would be a betrayal of Almighty God, and He's not going to do it. That's one of the reasons why I love Him and admire Him, because I'm not going to do it either. And these needle threaders who are willing to do it, I love them. I hope they're truly Christians in some cases and just misguided, but they don't have my respect. They simply do not have my respect. Because as far as I'm concerned, the battle is raging and they're off on the sidelines with their backs turned to it, pretending, what battle? Huh? What? I don't see a battle. I don't see anything happening. Let me pray for your headache. Well, look, you can register at standamerica.us for the upcoming Andrew Wommack event that we're hosting at the Chesapeake Conference Center, 700 Conference Center Drive in Chesapeake, Virginia. Starts at 6 p.m. on Saturday. So come on out, get there early, get a good parking space, get a good seat. We are expecting a full house, folks. We're expecting a full house. And I want to mention, Sunday morning, we are going to be doing a follow-up. Now, Andrew will not be with me on Sunday morning, but I will be doing a follow-up message on Sunday morning, how to keep what God gives you. How to keep what God gives you. I really believe Andrew's going to reveal some things on Saturday night, and I'm going to preach a follow-up message on Sunday morning that is just going to solidify what God is doing, will do, and wants to do in our lives. how to keep what God gives you. That's going to be the title of my message on Sunday morning. So I hope you'll come to the Andrew Womack event at 6 o'clock on Saturday evening. And then only 5 miles from there at the Call Church, 943 Canal Drive, I will be there preaching a follow-up message, how to keep what God gives you. Well, God bless each and every one of you. That's the big doings right now. Nothing else to say, but come on out this weekend, 6 p.m. Saturday evening at the Chesapeake Conference Center, 11 a.m. Sunday morning at the Call Church, 943 Canal Drive. And in the meantime, folks, you step up, stand up, speak up, stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up. Because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. Because we are on God's side.